This, ladies and gentlemen, is the official Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition Shadow, and Wizards of the Coast go completely out of their way telling us that it is an completely, entirely crazy, dangerous, wicked creature that can hunt you in the dark, can kill any living creature, suck out their strength and drain them all the way to death, and if you are dead and you are brought to life again, they can hunt you again and basically kill you again. And then they give them a stat block of challenge rating a half, which makes them the biggest disappointment in the entire monster manual. Nothing but the slightest movement betrays it, a shifting of black within black, shadow within shadow. With no change to the light or surroundings, the shadow spreads, a silently seeping, oily pool. In a smooth motion, the limbs below out like ink in water, grasping and clutching. It rises, a towering column of void, its predatory focus unmistakable even in its featureless, shapeless form. Like smoke on the wind, it is gone as soon as it appeared, and all is shadows once more. Hi there fellow roleplayers and game masters, my name is Mr. Trask and welcome to a brand new video series where I take a monster from Wizards of the Coast that I absolutely hate the living crap out of and give you an alternative you can use in your games. And today I'm talking about the Shadow. Now, a few years ago when 5th edition came to the world, I opened up the monster manual and there were a few creatures that I looked up immediately. A few of the dragons, of course, always the beholder. I always look into giants, and one of the creatures that I always love to use in my games every now and then, especially for new players, is the Shadow. So I went to the page of the Shadow and I absolutely loved the lore they written for it. I love the concept, but I absolutely hated the design of it. And by that I mean the numbers. As you can see, the Shadow from Wizard of the Coast is a challenge rated a half creature that has 12 armor class, all that stuff. But I just think, personally, the Shadow is the perfect creature to pit against a non-suspecting first tier party who are running around a dungeon or in a church or wherever their Shadow is cast. A Shadow should be able to attack them. And the main concept of the Shadow is completely lost within this stat block. For example, the Shadow, they say it right here, from the darkness, the Shadow reaches out to feed on living creatures' vitality. There is nothing in this stat block that actually says that a Shadow steps out from the dark and grabs somebody and drains their strength or whatever. Of course, they have the strength drain ability and all that jazz, but the main weakness of this, the main thing about this is that they have the Shadow stealth. And here, right here, they say they can hide, they can take the hide action when in dim light. They can take the hide action as a bonus action when in dim light. That's all good, but a Shadow is supposed to be invisible in darkness or dim light. A Shadow is a Shadow. Now, I can understand this from creatures that have like shadow magic or shadow steppers or whatever that kind of stuff is, but I don't understand this from a creature that is called a Shadow, because it is a Shadow, and a Shadow is invisible within darkness. It is visible within light, but not within darkness because it's a freaking Shadow. Am I making any sense? Now, I understand that they wanted to make this a creature that isn't too high of a challenge rating, but then they do this thing, so I understand that they want this Shadow to take the hide action so it can be spotted, but that just doesn't make sense, first of all. And then they give it +4 stealth, +6 in dim light. Even if you roll as a dungeon master a hide action and you roll an 8 and you get a 14, a person with 14 freaking passive perception can spot a Shadow within a Shadow, which, and in my opinion, I'm sorry, it just doesn't make sense gameplay wise. I think a Shadow is meant to be that tier 1 creature that really freaks players out and really always has to like grab one party member and starts draining its strength, and all the other guys are like trying to kill it and they're trying to do all that stuff because this one person is being grappled by that one Shadow, and it just doesn't translate into the stat block that Wizards of the Coast has created for the Shadow, and I just think it doesn't do it justice. So I want to show you a Shadow that actually makes sense. So for that, I want to grab the Ultimate Bestiary, the Dreaded Accursed by Nord Games. And there's actually a few shadows in here, but there's two of them that are a tier 1. There is the Silhouette Shadow and the Treacherous Shadow. The Treacherous Shadow is, by the way, in my very own adventure, Isle of the Dreaded Accursed, based on this Bestiary. The Treacherous Shadow, there is an entire encounter around it, so if you want to grab that adventure for yourself, it's written by me and JVC Parry. Make sure to click the link in the description below. But the Silhouette Shadow is a challenge rated 2 creature, and as you can see, it is completely the same in a way. It is stealth 6, it has like armor class that's the same kind of armor class, the same range of everything, but it has a big difference, and that is Shadow Silhouette and Shadow Camouflage. And I can read this out loud for you, but basically a shadow is freaking invisible when it is in a shadow. Now the Silhouette Shadow is lower tiered, so it is invisible when it is standing still. So when it is in another shadow, but it is standing still, it is basically invisible because it's a freaking shadow. Now with Treacherous Shadow, they go a little bit further. It's a challenge rated 5 creature, has 14 armor class, more hit points, everything, and it has a very important aspect to it, which is called Umbral Betrayal. The Treacherous Shadow possesses a mundane shadow. It can see, basically, it goes into your shadow and it possesses that shadow, and it can mimic the movements of your shadow. So you carry this around for like days on end if you don't know it's there, right? And then suddenly it can step out of that as a bonus action, and it can grab you and start draining your strength. And here is where the shadow actually makes sense. Though the encounter from that I've written for this place in a church where people cast their own shadow. It sets this entire thing where you cast your own shadow, and everybody's like, oh yeah, it's a cool environmental thing, but then suddenly this shadow steps out and grabs you by the collar and starts attacking you and draining your strength. And on top of that, the Treacherous Shadow actually has a sneak attack ability, building on that thing where it possesses your shadow and waits for the perfect moment to grab you and then sneak attack you, dealing tons of damage before starting to drain your strength. So if you have a tier 1 party or a tier 2 party and you want to pit a really dangerous creature against them, make sure to look into the Treacherous Shadow by Nord Games in the Ultimate Bestiary, the Dreaded Accursed. And that was my first quick video on an alternative you can use for a certain monster from Wizards of the Coast. If there are any monsters from Wizards of the Coast that you don't like, put it in the comments below, and I will look into my vast collection of third-party stuff if I can find the monster for you that you can use instead. And until next video, bye-bye.